everyone, welcome to my YouTube channel. I'm Swapnil Pote. You're watching Night 2.5. So, as we remember, Anish Giri defeated Vidit Gujrathi in Rook Bishop versus Rook Endgame, which was theoretical draw, and it is supposed that that position to occur in a game is very rare, and if you are facing that same end game two times, then it's simply amazing and you feel like superb, yeah. So now, after the lesson that Anish gave to Vidit Gujrathi again faced that same end game against Hikaru Nakamura in the second day of the skilling open. So let's see what happened here. So Vidit Gujarati is with the white pieces and Nakamura is with the black. So Vidit open with pawn to d4, knight f6, c4, and e6. So knight to f3, pawn to d5, knight c3, bishop e7, bishop f4, castles, e3, and this all is pretty standard as white plays the first move, so white has a slight advantage. So knight b d7, bishop e2, d into c4, and the thing is, the bishop has just wasted a tempo by playing here. So the idea of black is to capture this pawn after the bishop has wasted tempo, so it has to waste tempo again. So now what Vidit comes with a nice plan is he just don't capture it back fast. He plays first castles, knight b6 protecting the pawn now, a4. This is very nice move because now you are expanding on the queen side, yeah. So a5, knight e5, knight f d5, bishop g3 saving the bishop which was attacked, c5 breaking, the plan is my these two pawns are like doubled, yeah. So I want to exchange with one of the pawns and get rid of this double pawn. So it's very instructive. To be very precise, this game, okay, we are looking because Vidit Gujarati is facing twice here, so you can also face. And so I want to clear you the end game idea that I will show you, like a basic idea of second rank defense, which will occur many times in this game. So knight captures c4, it regains the pawn, knight into c4, bishop into c4, and now the pawns are equal. So c into d4, e into d4, and now what black has gained after this all is this isolated pawn. So Hikaru will play for that isolated pawn. So bishop b4, rook c1, knight b6, bishop back, like bishops are more superior to knight. So you want to save your bishop, yeah, for the instead of knight. So bishop b7, d5, and b into c3, rook into c3, and to be like what after this 18 moves, like this game is as long as 135 moves, but if we go to round up this position, so what I think is, okay, white has this double bishop advantage, whereas also he's trying to consolidate his isolated pawn with exchanging with this pawn. So it's pretty equal, but slight advantage for white. Knight into d5, and now you give your bishop advantage by taking bishop into d5, into d5, queen into d5, bishop c6 attacking the queen, queen into d8, rook f d8, b3, rook d5, h3, like you don't want to get mated by something back rank, yeah. So h5, rook fc1, rook a8. So now we can conclude that, okay, white is aiming for this c5, whereas black is aiming for this d5, and also it's opposite color bishop, so it it is sort of equal position. Yeah, this is nothing. h4, f6, bishop c7 attacking the rook, rook a d7 attacking the bishop again, bishop b6. Now the bishop is monster there. Rook e5, rook e3, like offering an exchange, and Hikaru doesn't hesitate and take that pawn on rook into it, bishop, rook on e3, bishop into e3, rook d3, rook c5. So we can see that Vidit is going for active defenses. So g6, rook into a5, rook into b3. Again the pawns are equal, opposite color bishop endgame. It's a drawn one. But what happens is after rook a8 check, king f7, a5, rook a3, bishop f4, rook a4, bishop g3, g5, breaking that h5 pawn, h4 pawn. So h into g5, f into g5, f3, rook a1 check, king h2, rook a2. Like now the threat is you are pinning this pawn, so I can just, if you are not careful, I can take this pawn. So this is the threat here. So Vidit comes back, breaking the pin by king g1, and now Hikaru break again g4, bishop f2, g into f3, g into f3, f into g, bishop into f3. And now the thing I want to say is, like again Vidit is going for that end game, which was a nightmare for him. But after that completely drawn position, going in this end game is like not nice for your confidence also. Yeah. Therefore, as we see the standing, he is on 15th position. It might be his schedule because he's playing something around at 10:30 p.m. and his last round is at something around 4 a.m. Yeah, so it's very difficult for him to play. He has to be in right mindset to play, and even though after such obstacles he's trying to like hold draws, get better position against this strong player. Yeah, Hikaru Nakamura is just number one in this blitz format. So bishop and f3, bishop c5. Okay, is a pawn of Nakamura. Bishop c6, bishop b6, king g7, bishop d4 check. And I want to mention that why this king is like inferior to this king. Yeah, because if you see, this rook is controlling this last rank, whereas in the second rank this rook is cutting this king, so the king can't go upwards. Yeah, so that is the problem. And if you can't get upwards, then obviously this king is going to be more active. So that's the difference more than a pawn. So Nakamura tried to improve his king by playing king to g6, rook g8 check, king f5, rook f8 check, king g4, bishop h6, rook g2 check, king f1, rook c2, king g1, bishop d5, rook f2, offering an exchange. And let me tell you, if you just exchange this pair of rook, like if I just exchange, yeah, then I am just left with this opposite color bishop endgame, where okay, you are a pawn up, this is pawn up, but up to remember is opposite color bishop endgame is drawn. And why so? Because the squares which are controlled by this bishop, this dark square, can't be controlled this by this light square bishop. Yeah, so what I can do is I can just simply give this pawn for this pawn, and when you this lonely pawn goes on a dark square, I just give my bishop for this pawn. That's the idea in this position. So you really don't want to exchange your rooks. So this is obviously not played in the game. After rook f2, rook c6, avoiding the exchange. Rook d2, bishop e4, king f2, h4, king e3. The white king is slightly becoming active. Rook e6, rook d4, pinning the bishop to the king. h3, bishop c7, king f5, bishop h2, bishop c6 check, king f2, rook g6, king e3, rook g2, and this move like seems like really dangerous in first glance. Okay, I am attacking your bishop, and if you move your bishop, like I am, and if you move your bishop, I just simply push my pawn, and you have to give your pawn for the bishop. But there is amazing move, not amazing, but a simple and very nice move. Rook d2, protecting that file. So again, rook goes back to g8, rook f2 check, king e6, rook a2, bishop d5 taking the rook, rook b2, rook a8, rook b6 check, king f7, rook b5 attacking the bishop, bishop g2 protecting the pawn on h3, king f2. Like now the king is trying to get near to the white pawn, yeah. So king e6, rook h5, it is trying to block the file from which the king is going to come on. So rook f8 check, king e3, rook f3 check, king d4, rook a3, king c4, king f6, king b4, and now rook a2 check, rook a2. Like here I saw one point. Okay, rook a2, bishop b8, king g6, rook h8, king f5, and now king to b3. And now you will think, okay, okay, first I will show what Nakamura played. Rook a1 is played in the game, but you might say, okay, this pawn is like free, so why just I can't take it? So here is a little tactic, and the tactic is you just give a check on h5 and pick up this rook, and then you are completely winning from the losing position. So that's the trick, and you don't want to fall for it, and at least when you are Hikaru Nakamura. So king b2, attacking the rook, rook d1, king c3, king e4, rook h6, king e3, a6. Now the exchange is happening, so you can just give the bishop for that. B into a6, rook into a6, rook c1 check, king b2, rook c8, bishop h2, bishop e4, rook a3 check, bishop d3, king b3, rook c1, rook a8, rook h1, bishop d6, h2. And this is very critical moment, guys. Again, like Vidit is heading in this bishop versus bishop rook and versus rook endgame, and that was a nightmare for him against his best friend, like Anish Giri. And now the thing is, you have to just take that pawn, otherwise you are losing. Because if you won't take it, I just simply move my pawn and then queen. So there is no other option just to take it. So when you take it, it's 85th move. When the last capture is happened, 85 rook into h2, and now from here 50 moves, that is still 135 moves. Vidit has to avoid checkmate, which is possible because it's theoretical drawn endgame. But let's see what happened here. So Vidit plays very fantastic here, to be very honest. Rook d8, rook h5. I will show you the moments. Yeah. So rook b8, Rook h1, and guess guys what Vidit plays here? King to b4. And you might say, like, okay, you have shown that tactic. I can just play my rook here, and then what? Thing is, I have king to c3, and a very nice thing is when you took my rook, this is a draw because my king is stalemated in the center. Yeah, like just check the squares. This is the king, and now just check the square. This square is controlled by bishop. This square is controlled by bishop. These two squares are controlled by the king, and these three fantastic squares are controlled by rook, and it's not a check, and also there are no free squares. Also this bishop is protected by the king. Yeah, so this is a very fantastic approach by Vidit Gujrathi here, like going for stalemate. If you remember, he also stalemated very nice with a rook down position. He stalemated with like in title to, and it was also very amazing one. So here also he managed. Okay, Hikaru Nakamura doesn't fall for it, but this was possible. If you give a check, it runs in immediate draw. So after king b4, he goes to rook to c1, rook b6, bishop c4. Now there is no stalemate trick. So king c5, bishop d3 check, king d6, king d4, rook b4 check, bishop c4, rook b7, rook h1, rook e7, rook h6 check, king c7, king c5, rook e5 check, bishop b5, rook e7, rook a6, and king d8. Now he's like, as we saw in the last game, okay, your second rank defense is easy to do. So Vidit is opting that one, and I will show why is it easy. Yeah, like I will show you the moment where the stalemate streak comes again. Yeah, in this moment. Okay, bishop c6, rook g7, rook a1, king e7, rook e1 check, king f6, king d6, rook g5, bishop e4, and it's now already 102nd move, so just 33 moves more. So after bishop e4, rook g3, rook f1 check, and the king is putting on the corner. But okay, it's a drawn. Vidit also said in the interview that okay, after the loss against Anish Giri, check this endgame till 15 minutes, and that's a lot because you already knew it. Yeah. So after king g5, rook f8, king h4, and king e5. And I want to say the thing is, till the 85th move, Nakamura doesn't even lost a minute. Yeah, this thing is really impressive to mention here, that Nakamura was 15 minutes on his clock. The game is of 15 minutes and some increment of 15 seconds, and Vidit was playing under time pressure of 1 minute. So just imagine Nakamura had just blitzed out his move. Yeah, so king g5, rook h8, king g4, rook f8, king g5, bishop f3, king h4, and now I will show you a trick. So king f4, and now you will say, okay, now the thing is, if you try to move your king, this is a checkmate because this square is covered by bishop, this cover is covered by king, this cover square is also covered by king, and the rook is controlling the whole file. So the thing is, you can't move your king because this square is also covered by bishop. If you like want to move from the g6 square, you have to go to h5, and that h5 square is also covered by the bishop. So this is not possible. So how you save the mate? Yeah, you can't interpose your rook somehow. Like if you put it here, I just give a check, and if you put it back, I just take it, and again it's a checkmate. So this is also not possible. So how you avoid a checkmate here? Please comment down in the section if you found it. Please, I would like you to find it because it's very pretty, yeah. And hope you found it. And the move is Rook G4 check. And again the stalemating trick. So the trick is, if the bishop takes the rook, which he will, so now there are no squares for the king because this square is covered by the king. This square is also covered by the king. Bishop is protected by the king, and now the thing is bishop on bishop on g4 control this both the squares, and it's really amazing. Like, you are just one move away checkmate, and I gave a stalemate. Yeah. So this endgame techniques will helpful for you in such kind of endgame. So this by this technique with this Gujrathi just draw this game. Rook king e3, rook g7, king f4, rook g4 check, king f5, rook g5 check, king f6, rook g1, rook h8 check, king g3, bishop e4, king f4, bishop f5, rook g2, rook h4 check, king e3, king e5, rook b2, rook h3 check, king d2, bishop d3, king c3, bishop f1 check, king d2, king d4, king e1, rook h1 check, king d2. And again, I would just like you to mention this a very short thing. When your opponent has a bishop, which is like, suppose now it's on the light square, even if it's on dark square, just put your rook on the opposite square, because then there are no just like discover attack if your queen ever get in the check. So it's very important. Like we can see Vidit has put his rook on b2, which is a dark square, yeah. So this is also very important principle. Rook h3, king e1, bishop c4, and now just like something around 10 moves to go, yeah. And then it's 50 moves rule, and it's a draw. King d2, bishop b3, king c1, king c4, rook f2, king c3. And if you are awake before the video, like before part, and if you have give the answer in comment section, this is revision for you, because again you save your mate with rook c2 check. And this is very nice, yeah. King b4, rook f2, rook d3. And now only thing with it can lose is like on net or something like mouse slip, yeah. Otherwise there is no way to lose this game. So king b2, bishop d5, king c1, rook a3, king d2, king c5, king c1, king d4, rook d2 check, and king c3 is the last move by Hikaru Nakamura, because the game is drawn because of 50 moves rule. And again, if you don't know what is 50 moves rule, so the thing is, when there are no pieces on the board, the 50 move rules are applied. Because thing, if you don't capture piece for 50 moves, then the rule will apply. Otherwise, if you don't push your pawn, okay, if even if your pawn is moved like pawn is moved for a square, then the rule again start. Like if I push my pawn on 10th move, and if there are no pieces captured, and no pawn moves till 60 move, which is not possible, yeah, obviously, then it's a draw. So this is the rule if you don't know. And with it just creates a draw of 50 rules, yeah, 50 more rules. And with it just draws this. And like he would have thank Anish Giri for teaching him lesson last day, so he don't lose to Hikaru Nakamura. Hope you enjoyed my video, and if you do, please do like, share, and subscribe. Also, don't forget to hit that bell icon to get regular notifications. Thank you.